The American ideal of the real man owes a lot to the Hollywood Western and the ultimate icon of white American masculinity, John Wayne.
Young fella, if you're looking for trouble, I'll accommodate you.
While other men talked a lot, thought too much, equivocated, and showed emotion, John Wayne made the world bend to his will with just a stare, a few words, his fists, and his guns.
I haven't lost my temper in 40 years, but Pilgrim, you caused a lot of trouble this morning. Might have got somebody killed, and somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I
won't. You won't get away with it, Cody.
Cody, huh? You've got a good memory for names. Joe Good.
And then there's Hollywood gangster films with cinematic tough guys like James Cagney and Humphrey Bogart.
One move out of you, son, I'll fill your pants full of lead. Get over there.
Men hardened by the world who knew the power of a few clipped words and a few rounds of ammunition.
Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney. They teach me to talk. I like those guys.
Come on. And this equation between toughness, manhood, and violence has continued and in many ways intensified over time.
Say hello to my little friend!
There's no question that over the past few decades, there's been a ratcheting up of what it takes to be considered a real man. Look at our action heroes. In the 1950s, Superman was the equivalent of an ordinary guy running around in tights and a cape. And today, he's pumped up and ripped. Well, look at Batman. The body of Adam West as Batman in the 1960s is a far cry from the far more imposing Dark Knight of the 21st century. Pro wrestlers' bodies in the 1960s were more flabby. In the 21st century, they're way more sculpted, pumped up, and ripped. And look at toy action figures. If you look at the Star Wars toy figurines that kids played with in the 1970s and contrast them with the Star Wars toy figurines that are being marketed to kids today, you see a dramatic shift. Well, look at the body of G.I. Joe. A study done in the late 1990s found that over the past 50 years, the size of G.I. Joe's biceps, in real-life equivalents, increased from 12.2 inches in 1964 to 15.2 inches in 1974 to 16.4 inches in 1994 and up to 26.8 inches by 1998. If you wanted a comparison to a real person, the biceps of someone like The Rock are reportedly only about 20 inches. We can see a similar pattern in the changing level of violence itself over time. We've gone from pistols in the 1940s to larger weaponry in the 1970s, to the increasing militarization of these weapons in the 80s and 90s, to the larger-than-life heavy metal killing machines we have today.
You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
Say hello to my little friend!
We've seen video game violence go from the benign aggressions of Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Asteroids to the unimaginable and hyper-realistic bloodbaths of today's games.
Watch and learn.
And the reason this matters so much is that while we've been debating whether guns or movies and video games are more to blame for violence, we've missed what the culture teaches boys about what it means to be a man.
Awesome.
We often talk about violence being a learned behavior, but it's more to the point to say that it's a taught behavior. And by shifting the focus from learned to taught, we shift the onus of responsibility onto those of us who are teaching our sons what it means to be a man. Since the 1970s, sociologists and other researchers have identified a consistent set of messages the culture sends boys about what it means to be a real man. William Pollock introduced the idea of a boy code in which boys are taught from a very early age to act tough and not show their feelings. Michael Kimmel extended the reach of the boy code into late adolescence and young adulthood, where he describes a guy code in which young men police each other into conformity with dictates about manhood that come with an implicit and sometimes explicit warning. Don't slip up or you risk being unmasked and found out as someone who doesn't measure up. The result is that guys are put into a box that turns out to be the perfect breeding ground for violence. We can't show any emotion except anger. We can't think too much or seem too intellectual. We can't back down when someone disrespects us. We have to show we're tough enough to inflict physical pain and take it in turn. We're supposed to be sexually aggressive with women. And then we're taught that if we step out of this box, we risk being seen as soft, weak, feminine, or gay.
You're so ugly you could be a modern art masterpiece.
groups. It comes from fathers, coaches, and older male role models as well.
Hit me. Come on, hit me. Come on. Come on, Jack. Hit me. Hit me. Hit me. Come on. Come on. Here it is. Here it is. Hit it. Come on, son. Come on. Son, left. What are you doing?
This was captured brilliantly in the Clint Eastwood film Gran Torino.
Now you're just gonna learn how guys talk. How you doing, Martin, you crazy Italian prick?
Who's the nip?
Oh, he's a pussy kid from next door. I'm just trying to man him up a little bit. You see, kid? Now that's how guys talk to one another.
They do?
Now go on out and come back in and talk to him like a man. Like a real man.
Eastwood's character, like so many fathers, father figures, coaches, and other men in boys' lives, assumes the role of the director and proceeds to evaluate how well the young man performs his role.
Good morning. This is Randy Pion on K-Res Radio, the voice of the Coeur d'Alene Indian Reservation.
In the groundbreaking film Smoke Signals, one of the first features produced by Native Americans, there's this memorable scene where an older kid tries to teach a younger kid how to be a real-life Hollywood Indian.
First of all, quit grinning like an idiot. Indians ain't supposed to smile like that. Get stoic. No, like this. You gotta look mean or people won't respect you. White people will run all over you if you don't look mean. You gotta look like a warrior. You gotta look like you just came back from killing a buffalo.
But our tribe never hunted buffalo. We were fishermen.
What? You wanna look like you just came back from catching a fish?
The scene is funny, but it also shows how the pressure to conform to ideals of violent masculinity cuts across racial, ethnic, and class lines. As the sociologist Richard Majors has pointed out, African American and other men of color in urban areas often adopt a hypermasculine, menacing persona he calls the cool pose to signal that they're still men, regardless of what else has been stripped from them. This is also true with Latino men,
Checkmate, puto.
who are disproportionately portrayed in Hollywood as gangbangers, Mexican drug lords, and thugs in the barrio, images that are crude stereotypes, but which nonetheless have become symbols of toughness to some poor and working-class Latinos whose manhood has been undermined by class exploitation and ethnic discrimination. Parallel track, we've seen porn culture go from the softcore sexism of Hugh Hefner's brand of hedonistic masculinity in the 1950s to the hardcore misogyny and sexualized brutality in the gonzo porn that is so popular with guys today.
Dude, I'm kind of uncomfortable watching this with you. Dude, learn to like it.
You have a long-standing cultural narrative that says being a man is about sexual conquest.
So did you bang her?
Oh, yeah, I banged her.
That's what a man does, okay?
That's why you need to stop being a pussy and nail her, okay? How do you not see the point? There's the point.
The message to young men here is that actually caring about girls and women is unmanly and gay.
I need a little bit more time with Carly. There, I said it, okay? And I know you think that's lame, but can you please just give me one more day?
That's not lame, bro. That's gay.
What most discussions about violence miss is how interconnected this larger story about manhood is, how it creates a kind of all-pervasive cultural script that says sexual conquest, physical toughness, force, and violence are legitimate ways for men to achieve and maintain power and control.